Hey everybody, welcome to this installment of the Booze Briefing. This is where I get to answer your dumbass questions about my two books, Joe's The Cold War Diaries, Volume 1 and 2, and Volume 3 on the way and in the works. Hopefully, end of the year for sure. Maybe the next few months, we'll see. Progress is kind of cyclical, right? You go through these periods where you're cranking and then you go through these periods where you're like, I really don't want to look at that right now. So I'm getting there. So before we get started, give us a like, give us a follow, give us a share, give us a subscribe, Facebook, YouTube. Most of our activity is on the Facebook group. But do your part. Why? Because every book we sell helps raise money and awareness for American Gold Star mothers. A cause near and dear to my heart, and hopefully yours as well. Once you learn about their mission, you can check them out at the website you see there on the screen. So here's my email address, by the way. Feel free to shoot me any questions you have about the books, drink recommendations, always a plus, booze accessories, even better. Hit me up. If you're a veteran, and hopefully most of you are, bring the spice, right? Tell me a funny story. Let's personalize it a little bit. So hit me up. All right, so we got the pour of the day. This is for my boys, Charlie and Ritesh down at Max's Bottle Shop. This is an interesting selection today. Today we have Jeptha Creed Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, 93 proof. This is the 6-year-old wheated bourbon. It's a wheated bourbon featuring our estate-grown Bloody Butcher corn. Bloody Butcher corn. Jeptha Creed. This is a wheated bourbon. This is out of Shelbyville, Kentucky, distilled and bottled by Jeptha Creed Distillery in Shelbyville, Kentucky. I learned a lot, by the way, from Charlie down at Max's Bottle Shop as I open this up here. I guess there's an organization called MGP. Some of you may know what this is. And by the way, I'm a little under the weather. I got a sinus infection, but I felt like I needed to get a video out. So yeah, I'm powering through it a little bit here. But yeah, this company called MGP, and apparently they're kind of like an outsourced distillery. So let's say you and I were going to open up launch our own brand, right, of bourbon or whiskey. We would partner with them. We tell them kind of our parameters. They distill it. It's probably not bottled there, but it's distilled and aged there. And so if you look, and I did not know this, if you look on the label of your favorite bottle, if it says distilled in Indiana, there's a 99.9% chance that it was distilled by MGP. And MGP is Midwest Grain Products, if memory serves me correctly. So it's interesting, a lot of kind of boutique brands, craft brands will start by using MGP initially. And the reason why is just cost, right? So you have to have your own rick shacks and warehouses and aging barrels, like all this other stuff you got to deal with, and the mash pots, like the whole nine. They do it all for you. And at first I was kind of like, that sounds kind of like it's a cheat code, right? He said, well, a lot of companies will launch with MGP, and then as they kind of get the revenue base going, they will then shift operations in-house and kind of build out their own distillery. All right, kind of makes sense. And that's why sometimes you'll hear people say, well, their new stuff is better than their old stuff, or their old stuff is better than their new stuff. A lot of times that's that shift from MGP to internally. So kind of an interesting thing. And one of the things Charlie told me about MGP was that they're very consistent. So if your recipe is solid, it's going to be the same every time. So if it's bad, it's going to be bad. Yeah. So anyway, check them out. MGP is kind of interesting. But this is Jeptha Creed. I'll put their website above my noggin up there. This is the Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey 6-year-old wheated bourbon. I'm going to give a little pour here. I think I let my ice sit too long. All right, we'll let that kind of season on the ice, as we like to do on the show. Put this out front here so you can see it. Jeptha Creed. Pretty cool. By the way, the challenge is still going on. If we get to 1,000 followers, 1,000 subscribers on Facebook or YouTube, not both combined. If we get to 1,000, I'm going to eat this 1988 MRE side item, potatoes au gratin, which was the last thing in my rucksack in 1989 when I left the Army. So yeah, I'm going to give that a go. Not looking forward to it, but for you guys, I will do it. I will stick a fork in it and give it the old college try, all right? So yeah, give us a like, subscribe, follow, share, all that good stuff. Spread the word, man, spread the word. All right, couple of things. One, it does definitely looks like liquor. So I'd say it meets the first requirement. Here, let's give a, whoo, that wheat. You can smell it too, you really can. Boy, that's good. You know, that wheat really, it really changes the taste of the Bloody Butcher corn between the two of them. Wow. Yeah, that's number 2 on the list here. I think that checks that off. All right, we got a couple of questions today. The first one is from Stay on the Tank. If you're in the Armor Corps, you know what that means. Stay on the tank. What are some sounds and or smells that instantly take you back to Conn Barracks or West Germany? It's funny to say West Germany because a lot of younger folks today don't even know that what West Germany was. They just know Germany, right? So West Germany, East Germany. You know, so a lot, actually. I would say that the number one sort of trigger smell type thing that takes me back is exhaust, diesel exhaust. Or I don't smell jet fuel exhaust anymore. That's what we ran in the tanks. But diesel fuel for sure. Like if it's cold outside in particular, and a big diesel truck goes by and I smell the exhaust, if I close my eyes and it's cold outside, kind of like, you know, Germany was a lot, I am instantly transported back. I feel like I'm on guard duty in a motor pool or something, you know. That's probably the biggest one. You know, there's not too long ago, I was walking somewhere. Well, I say walking. With my back and neck, it's more like hobbling. But I was somewhere, and there was some type of construction equipment. I'm not sure what it was, but it had a hydraulic line in it, and it was whining. If you were in a tank crew, you know what that sounds like. The hydraulics in the turret as you slew left and right with the main gun. You hear, and it's always that constant whine inside the turret. That'll take me back, although that's kind of rare. Other than that, you know, the smell of bratwursts. I'd never had a bratwurst till I got to West Germany. And I must have eaten my weight in those things, man. Like I could not get enough. Still can't. There's a great place down the road here, Kurt's Euro Bistro. It's a fantastic German restaurant. If you're in the Duluth, Johns Creek, North Atlanta type area, check them out. They've been there a long time. And Kurt and his wife Rennie were from Stuttgart, if memory serves me correctly. And he passed away a few months back. And but amazing. You talk about family recipes, man. And his son Alex has since taken over. He's been working there for decades. But Alex does the cooking now. He does the whole. In fact, he was doing it probably 4 or 5 years, maybe more, before Kurt unfortunately passed away. Kurt Eisner. But he was, Kurt's. Check out Kurt's. When I go to Kurt's, they have everything there. Schnitzel and Schwab salad and like all this other stuff. I get bratwurst, man. I can't help it. It's like my kind of tether back to that time, you know. So I get a nice Brochen, which was the German sort of dinner rolls, the Brochen with the bratwurst, the spicy mustard. Man, fantastic. But I'd say diesel exhaust is kind of the, because we had trucks, we had Hemmets, we had 2.5 to deuce and a half. We had 5 tons. We had the Hemmets. I mean, they were all using that diesel fuel, and we smelled it everywhere. So the logistics train behind an armor battalion is diesel fuel exhaust. That's what you smell. That's what you smell. So that would be my question. That's a good question. Let's take another drink here of our pour.
Hell yeah!
Jeptha Creed, 6-year wheated bourbon. Oh. Man, that is, It's not as warm as the double char in terms of the body, not the bite. By the way, I think this is like 90 proof or somewhere in that, yeah, 93 proof. But it has a different backbite on it. You can taste the wheat, you really can. This is a good selection, guys. You want something a little different, you need to check out Jeptha Creed. All right, final question today. This is from Riley 11C. 11 Charlie. 11C, 11 Charlie. Is that a Mortarman? I think it's a Mortarman, isn't it? Yeah, because I think the 11 Mikes were the motorized or mechanized Mortarman, but I think the 11 Charlie were the old school Mortarman, right? From an author standpoint, what have you learned from writing these books, and what would you do differently if you had to start rewriting them today? Wow. That is a terrific question. I learned a lot about writing, because you got to keep in mind I'm 90% done with volume 3, right? So there's really kind of 3 books under my belt at this point. I learned a lot about writing. I guess to kind of take that a little bit further, if you look at volume 1, the stories in volume 1, some of them are very, very terse. They're very short, kind of compact. And I wore that as kind of a badge of honor for a while, because I would tell people, you can read the stories. They're kind of bite-sized. You can read them, very leisurely. And it kind of worked, right? But there were some in there that I think were too terse in looking back. And I probably could have done a better job sort of describing things, right? And I learned that kind of partially through volume 1, but then certainly into volume 2, I learned, you know what, like the setup is 90% of the payoff, right? So you really want to describe in detail. And when I say in detail, I don't mean, there was dirt on the floor. Like, that's part of it, but more of like the sort of the Joeisms and working all the analogies in and kind of the comparisons to things. It was colder than X, a witch's tit, whatever. You just kind of work that stuff in. But I learned a lot more about the setup, I think, as I wrote these 2 books. Volume 3 is a lot more progressed from volume 1, I think, in a lot of respects. I would say there's a couple of stories in volume 1 which sort of, you can tell that I wrote those a little bit later in the production of volume 1. What is Your Quest is one of them. I got the list here. What is Your Quest is certainly one of them. The penis pump story, of course, which is kind of everybody's favorite. There's a handful of stories in Sir Lancelot Littleton that there's some that are shorter than others, and there's some, and there are few in there that are a bit longer. And I took that to a little bit of an extreme in volume 2, where the stories kind of became longer across the board. There were no more little 2-page stories. They were 8-page stories, that type of thing. So that's one thing. The other thing I learned is I'm never going to write a novel, right? These are collections of short stories and anecdotes, right? I don't have the patience or the expertise to write a novel. Travis Davis, who was stationed in 364 Armor with me in our Cav Scout, our scout platoon, he's written several works of military fiction, and they're terrific, by the way. 1 of 4 is amazing. You should check it out. It's a story of the unknown soldier through his diary that was found on the battlefield or after, so check that out. But he's got a talent for that. He's got a penchant for, envisioning something and then sort of setting that whole narrative up over the entire arc of a book. That's a different deal, right? That's a different deal than sitting down and saying, there was this funny story that I remember, so I'm going to, write it out, right? I can do that. And I think part of it has to do with patience, because I don't have any patience. I got no patience, man. I would get frustrated. To sit down, you would have to to do a novel, you would have to sketch it out. Like, what's the arc of the story? Like, how is this going to go? And then you kind of fill in the details, but it's all got to kind of marry up to your arc that you're writing. I can't do that. I thought about it, like, could I write a novel? And then I started thinking about it, and I'm like, no's the answer. I'm not going to write a novel. I think that's one of the things that I would learn. If I could go back and do something differently, which was the second part of your question, I wrote volume 1 and I called it volume 1 for one reason, so that I would force myself to eventually write a volume 2. I didn't know there'd be a volume 3. I figured volume 2 would be it, and that, that'd be it. Volume 1 and 2 are good, I think. I'm happy with them. But if I could do something differently, I would really think about the ordering of the stories, right? There's things in volume 2, or volume 1 rather, that there's a story that involves a certain character, for instance. And, I didn't really think about, hey, I'm going to use this character again because I've got more stories with that person in it in volume 2 one day. And that was tricky. And I think part of it too is there were some stories in volume 2 and in volume 3 that involve some individuals that are in volume 1 that I wasn't sure if I was going to publish those stories. Even though I changed the names and, did all that stuff. I'm like, I don't know. If I had written this knowing that I was going to put some other stories in 2 and 3, I might have done volume 1 a little differently, right? I didn't kind of plan it out. I just started writing volume 1. Here's a bunch of funny stories. And I changed all the names and here you go. Well, then I started writing volume 2 and I'm like, oh my God, what did I call that guy again? I got to go back over here and look, that kind of thing. I would have laid it out a little bit better. And I'd mentioned on a previous episode of the Booze Briefing here about doing a screenplay for Joe's. And I think a lot of that ties into that. When you think about a screenplay, these books by themselves don't represent a screenplay because they're not contiguous, right? There's this guy, and then you read 3 other stories about other guys, then you read about the other guy again, and then he's over here. It's just kind of all over the place. It works for these books, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't lend itself to an ongoing series beyond 2, maybe 3 volumes. So I don't know. I would probably give a lot more thought around planning, I think, and what the stories were going to be. I knew all these stories, and I knew all the stories in 3 when I was writing this, but it was like I had to test the waters a little bit. So the stories in 1, by and large, are a little tamer than some of the other stories. So yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of things I think that I would do differently. So let's give one more final drink here of the Jeptha Creed 6-Year Wheated. As soon as it hits your tongue, man, it's like boom. You smell it, you taste it. Oh, I think it works, by the way. Jeptha Creed, I'm going to give that 2 thumbs up. Yeah, so remember, keep your canteen full of whiskey, keep your bullshit in overdrive, and remember, make your future stories worth telling, guys. Rampage, we Pierce.
Dismiss!